It's in mine.
Okay.
You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, welcome to your City Commission Study Session. Please turn off or silence any cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and midnight and available for your viewing pleasure on YouTube. So tonight we welcome a report from Dr. Adams from Unified School District 453. Welcome. How are you?
Take them on, Mayor Pitney.
You're
Thank you.
mic check, mic check.
Yep. For those I've not met, I think I've met everybody in this room, but Kellen Adams, Superintendent for USU 453. This is my second year, believe it or not, already.
Wow.
Just about to wrap up semester one, so the last day of school for this first semester is Thursday for students. And then Friday we have what's called kind of a quasi work day, so staff can choose whether or not they work this Friday or January 3rd, so it's a flex day.
That's neat.
And then for the intents and purposes of students, we'll come back on January the 6th, and we'll shut down our winter moratorium. It'll be about the effect of those 2 weeks. So, tonight, my primary focus is really probably the biggest, hottest topic that the school district is grappling with currently, and it is related to our budget reduction, and what is certainly a large number and causing a number of different implications and a number of different decisions that I think will have relevance to you as city governance and certainly as city planners and otherwise. So hopeful to see some parallels there and then maybe invoke some conversation. So with that, I'll get started. So really tonight, I want to talk about what is our primary issue, which centers around the idea of a significant enrollment decline. So simply put, we are losing students. I'll talk to the budgetary impacts, a little bit about what we're doing both in the immediate as well as the foreseeable future. And then really where I'm starting to shift to is the long-term impact of the district. So put simply, in the state of Kansas, we are funded based upon the number of kids. So more kids equal more dollars, less kids equal less dollars. And the number of physical students sitting in seats, simply put, is declining. To tell a quick story, I'll take you back to, I think it was 2001. The name Wayne Simeon likely rings a bell. He went to the state finals in basketball. The system was over 4,000 students. Today we are under 33 students. Oh, wow. So just 23 years later, we have seen that big of a decline. For context, there are 286 school districts in Kansas. We are one of the smallest. We're the 4th smallest geographically. We are only 17 square miles. So metropolitan to the north, about 23rd, 24th Street to the west, obviously the river to the east, and then generally speaking, Muncie Road to the south. There's a little bit of a carve out around the QT area. I won't go into the nuance of that. So 17 square miles. So when I say that we are landlocked, truly, I say that tongue in cheek, but it's what I mean. We are truly landlocked in the sense that there is not a whole lot of area left for single family dwellings, multifamily housing, etc., that is not already parceled out and for development.
You mean smallest, you mean geographically, not?
Geographically, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Enrollment-wise.
Also in the state of Kansas, then you have the concept of what's known as weightings. And simply put, weightings is the idea that additional barriers sometimes come with students and additional resources follow them. The average student in Leavenworth equates to about $7,200. So every 10 students, you can imagine it's almost $75,000, give or take. So as you can imagine, if you start seeing these large swings, the commas on that figure start adding up. And then for the city of Kansas, as far as the school finance formula is concerned, we are largely tied to a statutory calculation, so our revenue is very much not unlimited. We have certain caps set in place, so generally speaking, we are at most of those statutory caps already. So there's not a lot of unrealized revenue that could be, say, gone after by simple statutory or other types of governmental action by our Board of Education. So here's a look at what's happened since 15-16. So here's the 10-year history that will likely grab your attention with a little bit of an incline in 17-18. And then generally speaking, we have been on the downward trend since then. So again, you see here FTE, just for a caveat, that's full-time equivalency. We often use the word head count. That is the true number of boys and girls in our system. FTE is then the conversion of that. So an example of that is I have students that are maybe with us half day, their FTE would be half day. So you'll see there we peaked at 3692, just under 3,700 this year. And again, this is a pre-K through students. This includes everything from our earliest learners all the way through. And then take a look at the weightings that follow this, and you'll see an even more troubling trend here. A little bit more of a roller coaster ride, so to speak, and there's some nuance to this. But generally speaking, we are again on a significant downward trend, where again, we were almost near 6,000 on that total weighted FTE, and this year we are just over 5,600. This is what directly impacts the dollars that flow to this. So I've got really three factors that we're dealing with here. The first of which is the obvious student decline that we just talked about. And put simply, the number of K-12 students that are living in our district. What is often confusing here for a lot of folks is that we're not seeing a decline in Leavenworth proper, not seeing a decline in the population of Leavenworth County. So it requires some understanding of what's going on. What is happening is the number of what we call rugrat rooftops is actually not turning over. Said differently, rooftops are not re-green. So this is where I typically ask you, think about your local cul-de-sac, local block. Think back 10 years to today. Are there more or less K-12 kids running around that cul-de-sac today or 10 years ago? And most often I hear it's 10 years.
Yeah.
Typically what I'm hearing is people are desiring to retire in place. They like living here, the cost of living, whatever that reason is, which is great. But what is happening is that rooftop is not regreening. So as a result of our landlocked issue that I discussed previously, we have more and more rooftops that are no longer considered. And that is a large concern when you don't have the ability to develop any really areas left. The second thing that is converging for us here is the end of ESSER. ESSER is an acronym that stands or represents federal stimulus that was brought on during the pandemic. And what happened for a number of districts, Leavenworth included, is to operationalize some of the dollars for learning loss and other types of initiatives. And what's happened now is that as those federal dollars are drying up, you've got operational costs that either are needing to continue from another source or needing to stop. And then just like you all, the third thing, of course, is the impacts of inflation. We are seeing large, oftentimes six-digit figures of increased expenditures in things such as property casualty insurance, health insurance, etc. Here's a look at your individual weightings that I break down. And again, I won't go into all of this. This will give you, again, a good trend that even as the district does have demographic changes, we are, of course, subject to a number of different, I would say, connections that make us unique. We have the military connectedness that is really unique, especially in Kansas. We have a connectedness to some of the other demographics that are specific to this town. But regardless of how much that fluctuates, you're going to see those total weightings are continuing to send a downward trend over the last decade. Probably the one more consistent for us, and it's really small, is with regard to our bilingual and our CTE, but again, those are small parts of it. If you look at risk, and at-risk in Kansas is defined by students qualifying for free lunch. It's the green bar if it's printed in color for you. Just look at the fluctuations there just in the at-risk. We've been as high as 26% and dropped down as low as 18%. That has a significant impact in dollars that flow to the district. Context, every student that qualifies as at risk brings with them $2,500. So every time a student does or does not qualify, that's a $2,500 swing. So as I alluded to, we're seeing natural, as expected, increases with inflation for those utilities and insurance. And then the third thing we're battling, as I'm sure you are as well, is this increasingly competitive labor market. And the context here that's probably important is in a industry that is grappling already with enough on the recruitment and retention side, it is really difficult right now to recruit and properly retain our certified educators, especially considering how many districts are within what I would consider a reasonable driving distance. So trying to stay competitive with those wages is ultra important to our staff, but is also really even more, I would say, difficult based upon the number of districts that folks can drive to, that it does not require a move of their family.
Yeah.
So you might be asking, what are our next steps? First thing that's probably the most important is to understand that our system is based upon approximately 85%. I do want to make something very clear here. We did not spend our way into this problem. In fact, the reason why I'm not more concerned now is because we have been so fiscally conservative to date. It is why we were going to be able to shelter the storm and weather the storm. But at the same time, I want to make it very clear for anybody listening, we did not spend our way into this issue. This is largely and or entirely attributed to the losses. Second there, sorry for that, carrying over on the second line, we've got to follow the tier progression steps, and I'm going to go through that here in a second. And then finally, the biggest piece for us is looking at how do we execute the necessary steps to reduce our expenditures without an impact to the cost. And as parents, grandparents, wherever you're at on that spectrum, cousins, nephews, etc., I hope you would appreciate we're going to try to minimize the impact to kids and minimize the impact to teachers. That, of course, is easier said than done. So what are we looking at in the grand totality of this? $2.5 million in reduced general state aid. That's from the head. So less kids equals less dollars. That number is 2. The second number, I will argue, is somewhat conjecture at this point in late December, but will become probably more clear as we get some of those renewals. But based upon initial data we're getting from, say, utilization of health insurance, we are expecting a large increase. In fact, we have reason to believe it will be a significant increase, right? And so we're hedging on the idea that that is another 2.5. Then you will see, believe it or not, just in 2 fiscal years, we have lost nearly 10%. So that grand number is $5 million. That must be done by basically the end of this fiscal year, i.e. June 30.
How did going revenue neutral add to this number? Or did
So the revenue neutral decision does not have an impact with
it
this.
doesn't? Okay, good.
However,
Wow.
does it represent an opportunity next year? The answer to that is yes. I'll go into that here in just a second. But for this current year, the revenue neutral decision did not have an impact.
Okay.
Good question. So I'll come back to that in a second. So where do we go from here? One of the biggest questions that I'm asking right now is obviously where are the kids going? One of the biggest things we are seeing is related to something that I would argue is largely out of any of our control. And it is the repopulation of the United States and of Kansas and of Leavenworth County. Our largest classes are walking across the stage. Smaller classes are entering pre-K and kindergarten.
Yeah.
So when you ask, well, what are you doing about that? I'm not sure what exactly we as a system should do, other than promote good family planning, but also repopulation, right? And so that is part of our quandary, is the stage left or stage right at graduation is a larger class than my incoming kindergarten. The second thing is an evaluation of what I call all of our half-empty rooms. So I use this frequently. You've been on the airline a time or two that's been canceled. You're going from Miami to, let's say, San Antonio, and that plane didn't quite fill. Whatever that threshold was for Southwest, they're going to not fly that tonight. We've got to start making some of those tougher. This will largely impact our secondary. We will have classes that say have 5, 6, 7 kids. Those may not be able to be offered every year. We may have to offer them every other year, only once a semester, or combine them. You get the idea. The implications, though, is that will have an impact on kids and certainly on teachers, right? And then finally, for us, it's a large on the future plan. Every time a position turns over right now, it's a really tough conversation about do we need to fill? Does that position have to exist? Is that one we can temporarily suspend and those duties be combined with somebody else? Is that something we can live without for, say, a year, 6 months? You get the idea. Every time a separation occurs, it's not just about thinking about tomorrow, it's thinking about the implications of that moment. So here's kind of our progression. This will get back to your questions there. But first is we have to identify any additional revenue. As you know, the biggest piece of revenue that hangs out there is kids. I have in my mind that there are some that left the district by choice. I would like to obviously target those families, so to speak, and help understand why did you leave our district. Were you unhappy with fill in the blank? can we resolve, fill in the blank, so that they can repatriate back here? In my mind, some did not necessarily leave Leavenworth, they left Leavenworth School District. Does that make sense? Second to the additional revenue is we did go revenue neutral. That was a decision made in August. That was in the capital outlay fund. So it did not impact the decision or the implications here, but it does represent additional revenue for our district. What can happen there is we can raise that mill rate back up to the 8 mills, and our capital outlay could partially take, say, the maintenance and or building related expenses. So you could transfer some of those operational expenses to that. So that would represent a piece of this potential. But to be clear, it did not create the $5 million.
Did you guys go revenue neutral 2 years in a row or just one?
So it would have been we're in FY 25, so then FY 23, 24 we exceeded, and then 25. So it was on, off.
Okay.
And then the third one, you may have heard this term a time or two, is impact aid. You likely have heard it, and it's typically associated with places where there is largely tax exempt property that is not able to generate revenue. That's not really the situation here. We do have some of that in our district. The impact aid that impacts us is actually federally connected students. So this was some new learning for me and certainly others in our system. The best example I can give you is if a parent of one of our students works at the VA, they qualify for impact aid. If we have a parent, yes, if we have a parent that works at the...
I was a parent that worked at the VA. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so your student, students would qualify for impact aid whenever that day.
Wow.
If they work at, obviously, the penitentiary.
Retroactivated.
Obviously the fort, that's the no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 properties in Kansas City, and I apologize, I don't have the addresses, but there are both federal buildings that both fall within our catchment. We've already identified approximately 300 students.
Okay.
For every student qualifies, it's $500.
Okay.
So it's a real dollar figure. The nuance to this is we've got to have the proper paperwork and documentation filled out by the families. Families don't really get anything.
Yeah.
This is kind of back to that quandary on that free and reduced issue for me, really free lunch, sorry, issue for me. Where I need paperwork turned in by families, that doesn't impact them necessarily.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So the impact aid does present some additional revenue for us that if approached appropriately could help.
Okay.
So those are kind of the 3 main areas of revenue that we're currently seeing. Second is what I call the low-hanging fruit. Those are the extras, if you want to call them that, the stuff that has really low to no impact. I think the number of subscriptions, have you ever looked at this at your house? I'm asking this of my wife right now. Do we really need all these subscriptions?
Yeah.
And for us, it's, the Netflix and Paramount Plus. For the district, it's not those, just to be
Yeah.
clear, right? But are there some subscriptions that we have for software, for curriculum, et cetera, that we can maybe find a way to be able to live without?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That will have low to no. We then move into higher impact, which starts looking at reduction to staff. You're going to see that dashed red line on the page. That is intentionally set. Because right now, today, I'm telling you that's where we're stopping. We don't need to cross that line. It starts really cutting to the bone, so to speak, when you start talking about the delay or minimization of raises, or in some cases taking money back from people. We're not entertaining that. And then finally, we're not entertaining the reduction in force. Reduction in force is we are asking for voluntary, if you will, or mandated resignation. Right now, we are going to use the voluntary separations that occur. There will likely be people that will be asked to be sitting in new seats on the bus, but they will still have a seat. Yeah. So natural attrition will largely be used, I would say, as that very level.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the future. First is we need to understand that we need to have an outward projection on this. The demographic data that we have says that we are not done with our decline yet. This will largely be a huge piece of it, but we can expect more insofar that housing and other trends do not change within the district. Generally speaking, the district's boundaries are your boundaries, right? We share, I would say,
Pretty
the
much.
majority of those boundaries together, right? So, in an organization that's largely personnel, we have to be extremely strategic about where we place people, where we pay people. It is the #1 cost driver for us. It's also the #1 reason how we get our business done, right?
Yeah, right.
The #1 most impactful thing, without a question, is the teacher in the classroom. And then the big thing for me is we cannot stop the district moving forward, so you've got to have this onset that, hey, this is a storm that we will weather, we will get through it, and we will move on together. We've got to continue to make decisions that ultimately reflect our strategic plan and do what's best. I do realize that this is painting probably a dark cloud over the current school year and or year for you guys, and I apologize for that because I know it has implications for your employees and for others in the city. But it is the current reality, but I do believe we can get through it, and I do believe we will see through to the end.
I have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Are you seeing an increase in the amount of military who are bringing their families with them?
So I would say our military connectedness, which is largely at the high school level for us, and I can kind of explain some
Right,
of
that's,
that,
yeah, that makes sense, because of their,
has not really fluctuated. believe it or
Okay.
not.
okay,
So, for
are you,
context, we usually see mostly 9 through 12.
okay,
And I think that's primarily because the Fort 207 has elementary buildings, but they don't have that high school. Does that make sense?
yeah. I teach art to homeschooled. Are you seeing some homeschool, more homeschool people,
Sure.
kids?
So if I look at where and or why, let's call it the why, kids have exited, some are going to surrounding districts, but some are exiting K-12, at least public K-12, either entering private K-12 or others.
Okay,
Now, these are not like double-digit types of percentages. Right?
just a
But
few.
we are seeing what I would call exits by choice. Does that make sense?
Do we still have a virtual school program?
We have a virtual school program through the 8th grade.
And then, and the last question I have is, do you think, we're looking at affordable housing, building more affordable housing. We do have, we're not totally landlocked. We do have places that we could focus on. How could we help with building more affordable housing?
So
Help.
glad you asked this question, because as everybody's asking, how do we help, right? I firmly believe that this is primarily economic. I recognize fully for anybody listening that we've got some issues as a district to resolve. I own those, and I'm committed to resolving them. I believe we, again, have people that have left by choice, and I want to bring them back. But I do not believe that this decline has all happened just because people have left.
Yes.
I truly believe this is largely tied to development, specifically on residential housing. So my short answer to your question, which I know is not a short answer, is providing more affordable housing that is specifically within our district boundaries.
Yeah.
And as the dreamer in me starts looking, there's only so many parcels left, at least in the district's boundaries. The one way to go is up, right?
Yeah, right.
And so are we ready to have those conversations? Are we ready to reimagine C1 properties that have no longer need for traditional commercial and or industrial needs from 20 years ago
Sure.
that are becoming vacant or otherwise? Are we ready to entertain those conversations as a city? I am. I want to be at the table for that.
Good, we want to hear that, hear from you, yes.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do too, so, absolutely. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Excellent questions, thank you.
Expulsion. So when students are expelled, what happens?
Sure. So when an expulsion occurs in the state of Kansas, the maximum is 186 days.
Okay.
So generally speaking, that expulsion will go from the date of, so let's say it's September 1, till the following September 1st, right? Meaning that student is likely without services for the entire time. What happens oftentimes we see is that students do not come back to the district because the family decides to seek other services if they have the needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If they do not move, they are entitled to come back after serving that 186 days. Does that help?
Yeah. So are they able to enroll in online?
Sure. Yep, they can take online, and some do that. So when I was referencing what happens, a lot of folks, they'll go, hey, we aren't willing to, or don't want to wait a year for that. We're going to go enroll in a Lawrence virtual school or some of the other virtual schools around the state, which as long as they're willing to accept them, can do that. That sometimes is the best path for a student in that situation. But sometimes you'll see families that get frustrated, they either leave and go across the state line, they'll leave to another part of the state, et cetera. And then, of course, it's dependent upon that system. Because in Kansas, the one requirement for us to accept you is you have to live in the district. As long as you live in the district boundaries, we are bound by the law to. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And bullying, has it increased, decreased? Have you been receiving several complaints, or is it getting better this year?
Sure. So I personally am not getting those complaints. I am confident that we have bullying going on in some form. I would be lying to you if I said we didn't have bullying at all in our schools, right? But I have data that supports that a lot of our issues related to classroom management, related to behaviors, et cetera, is on a significant and positive downward trend as it relates to our work that we started really at the start of the school year with safe and sober.
Okay.
So, very motivated and encouraged by the initial data I've seen after first semester.
All right. And last question. 2 top concerns that come from your teachers.
2 top concerns?
Yes, sir.
Man, I have a photo finish here for you. First, I would say and again, I'm just speaking from the general terms of life, it would be classroom behaviors.
Okay. Yeah.
So those that are disruptive. And I would say it has changed a little bit from what I heard last year. What I heard last year was these kind of more extreme behaviors.
Yeah.
Those that were leading to long-term suspensions, expulsions, et cetera. Those seem to have died down, at least the complaints on that side. It's more now to those that are not necessarily considered more egregious,
Yeah.
but are still disruptive in nature. So here's one child taking away from the learning of 22 others.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect
It's
sense.
frustrating for the 22, it's
Yeah.
frustrating for their parents, it's frustrating for our educator, you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
The second is a more general statement of just a lack of appreciation for the teaching profession.
Yeah.
A lack of respect
Yes.
for the teaching
Yes.
profession. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not to go way back into history, but my grandfather was a superintendent, grandmother was a teacher. I come from a lineage of educators. Generally speaking, I will tell you, they were largely respected and heralded in their communities, just for the respect of the work that they did.
Yeah.
I am not seeing that anymore for our education profession.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'm seeing them deemed as, the demons, so to speak, and they
I
are
don't
the ones
understand
that
why,
are
yeah.
not doing the good work anymore and/or are not first advocates for kids, et cetera. I don't see that as the reality. That has unfortunately become the perception.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you, and I thank you for everything that you have done, everything you continue to do, and thank you for just being a voice for the teachers as well as the students. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I
Yeah.
appreciate your just being transparent with us and to the community. This is good stuff. This is what the community needs to know and hear. So, I'm right there with you. We need more housing. And we're committed. I mean, I know I'm committed to that, so.
Well, and when we hear the reports, I just read one about Kansas birth rate declining, over the years, and it has declined. But I think right here in our community, the cost of rents have gone up so high, and we're dealing with, the attainable housing group and with others, to try to, look at the people who work in our community that need affordable housing, and there are neighbors, there are bankers, there are people that work at the bank, there are people that work at the restaurant. They all have kids, and we need to make sure that they have housing that they can afford, and that will make everything better. It'll make the kids going to school better too.
Yeah, but I will say kids are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Especially when they get to college. Well, thank you so much. Any
Thank
other
you,
questions?
Dr. Adams,
Scott,
appreciate
you
it.
have anything? Okay.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy
to all.
holidays.
Same to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Enjoy that baby's first
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's
Happy
awesome.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, next on the agenda is our state legislative agenda for 2025.
All right, I'll take over for that. So presenting to you a quick policy report on what the League of Kansas Municipalities has deemed to be their priorities for the upcoming legislative session, which is coming up quickly, begins January 13th. We have kind of 3 different areas that we monitor or keep an eye on. We monitor bills and issues that move forward in the House and Senate, bring any bills that would have a positive or negative impact to the city to you guys for support and/or opposition. And per the commission's goals, we will make every effort to bring requests for letters of support or opposition to city commission meetings as specific agenda items. Some of the things that we are already doing to prepare for the legislative session, Penny and myself are setting up meetings with state representatives and their staffs. I think we have 2 this week, and I think 1 set up in January, so we're already moving forward with that. And then we are
Yeah,
going.
we used to every year have a
Like that we all got together and had like a dinner. or lunch.
legislative luncheon,
Okay.
yeah, where we had everybody here, so we could kind of hear all around, you know. So
You know,
that, I mean,
with all
this is great, this is good, yeah.
Okay.
This is good too, and continue with
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we'll look into doing that,
Because
yeah.
we gotta do that, but maybe at some point,
Sure, yeah.
get them all together if they will come.
Yeah.
Sometimes they won't.
Okay, and then we're attending our 2025 legislative preview webinar held by LKM to kind of go over their priorities here. We're also hiring, or will soon be hiring an assistant to the city manager, so that will be the open desk in front of my office. Part of their duties will be directly monitoring the legislative session and keeping Penny and myself informed on any
That's
ongoing
great.
there.
Yeah, we need that, it's good.
Yep. So the policy itself, which should be in your packet, has over 100 issues, and probably will not all be at the top of the list for LKM, but they did provide 7 priority items. Of those 7, I highlighted 4 that I think particularly affect the city of Leavenworth. Home rule, so this is their priority pretty much every year is ensuring the home rule of communities like Leavenworth. We obviously have, as you've seen on Facebook comments and all that, have a unique election style here at the city of Leavenworth that some people have their thoughts and opinions on, but that's the decision.
Not all that unique. There's like 19 cities
Yeah.
in the state of Kansas that have the same.
So,
I'm telling them that.
they're committed to helping us continue what we feel is the best approach for the community of Leavenworth. Sales tax exemptions, as you're all aware, the legislature already removed state sales taxes for groceries. There's been some discussion on getting rid of local sales taxes for groceries as well. Obviously, being such sales tax dependent community as we are, that would be a huge hit. I think early numbers calculated up to $1 million a year in lost revenue for the city of Leavenworth, so that's a huge hit. So obviously that's very important to us, and making sure that LKM is fighting that effort for us, and that we're also bending the ear of our representatives on how important it is that we keep that revenue.
Could they
Yeah.
could they take that away? They could
That's
say-
like overstepping our home rule again. That's going
Yeah.
back to that first one.
They have
I know they have tried.
some
but-
would argue they have the authority
Yeah.
to do it, whether they have the majority of the votes to do it, I don't know. And frankly, I don't know whether Laura Kelly has indicated whether she would support that or not either. Those are all things that I think we should have with our representatives and with LKM, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. In particular, if the legislature wants to remove sales taxes that are statewide, that's well within their right to do so, but that they should leave local municipalities' rights alone in terms of taxation.
Right.
Mental health and housing kind of go together here. They also have homelessness on the list, but obviously we're dealing with homelessness issue in the city of Leavenworth, and as we've all noted, some of the frequent flyers, so to speak, are people that are really dealing with serious mental health issues. Also of note, as Miranda said during her presentation a month or 2 ago, mental health also is an issue in people who are housed, and so and that affects our community here in and out of homes. So I think we should be paying particular attention to the efforts that the state will be providing for resources for mental health and homelessness. I think both mental health and homelessness are really more regional problems than they are one community can solve. And so I think whatever help we can get from the state would be very beneficial for this community, and also any regional opportunities I think we'll keep an eye on and be sure to be a part of. We met with Mid-America Regional Council and brought that up with them as well, that we would be willing to jump on any programs they have. So again, housing, as we've already discussed, lack of quality housing across the state creates an impediment to growth and economic development. We support and encourage access to quality housing and any kind of tax credits or incentives that would support the kind of housing that we were looking for. I think Penny and I are on the same page that it is important to be strategic in the kind of programs and incentives we provide to make sure that we are building the houses we are looking for. If we build, if we incentivize senior housing that is going to bring seniors in from the metro area to kind of downsize and get out to the more expensive area of the metro, that doesn't really solve our housing problem.
Right.
It doesn't solve the school district's housing problem.
No, it didn't.
So more importantly, what houses are we building and who's moving into them is we should be very strategic about that. A couple other items for consideration: property tax exemptions. Again, kind of similar. The state has toyed with the ideas of removing the local municipalities' ability to levy their own property taxes or handcuff it in some way. So just keep an eye on that. Tax policy and spending. We'll be closely monitoring the proposed changes to the Kansas mill levy system, including the appraisal process. The LKM believes that local spending and taxing decisions are best left to local officials, which we certainly agree with. And we join them in opposing state-imposed limits on the taxing and spending authority of cities. And then again, touching back on our city elections, there have been some efforts by, I would not say a majority of people, but still nonetheless, people making noise on making local elections partisan. We at staff, and I believe the commission agrees that would not be ideal for the city of Leavenworth, and that the lack of partisanship is what allows us to work together and get things done on a community basis. And so we would certainly hope to join OKM's efforts in opposing that.
This almost passes every year, so with so many people working for Department of Defense here, they would not be able to be in our elections, so.
Yep.
Well, and
We need to watch this one.
the property tax exemptions,
Happens every year.
that comes up as a bill almost every year
Yep.
too, by big companies wanting to
Yep.
be tax exempt, and that's one thing we don't need here.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think those are all very important things, and I looked over all of the league's things, but I think as far as City of Leavenworth, these are good, they're all good.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the big one is stepping on our home rule, unfunded mandates, telling us we have to do things and not funding
Yep.
it. To do them, then we have to take them out of our own. So I think those are all, I don't want to be on an adversarial with our state legislature, but sometimes it comes to that when they
Yep.
propose some of these things, so I'm glad you guys are meeting with them.
When you hire someone, and I assume they'll give you some type of report, can you put that in your weekly update? If there's
Oh, yeah,
something that
absolutely,
you
yeah.
need to know about?
Yep.
I mean, for the most part, I
Yeah, because
think-
things happen so fast,
Yeah.
No, I mean, and we will certainly do that. We'll provide frequent updates in the weekly updates, that's what that's for. But we will also provide you more structured reports from time to time as well, to be a little more comprehensive and have that conversation with you to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. So.
Do you have any questions?
No, I appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah, I think almost the legislative issues though that come up, sometimes those are like a quick report, a quick report.
Yep.
that even right now, and not, this is gonna come up on Thursday, you need
Yep.
to know about it so you can contact your legislator.
Yep.
So those are good too.
We had, this isn't legislative, but it's kind of for us, we had talked about, I don't even know if it was at budget hearings or if it was works at, goals, having like a state of the city. They used to have that.
Okay.
Potentially bringing that back, and not to put you on the spot because it would be, I think Paul did a lot of it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and we have a lunch, and I think it kind of got, I don't know what happened when maybe partnered with Fort Leavenworth and some, I don't know what happened, but I would be nice to have something like that back. The city of Lansing does it, it's really nice, and,
It depends on how we did it. We were doing it in the evening as a
I thought we did lunch.
presentation, but we were in there with the county and with,
Yeah.
I mean, it was long and it was
Yeah, we
not
want
good.
that.
We need to have our own thing,
Yeah,
just our own thing. Yeah.
Okay.
so we can look into that,
Yeah,
think we were all on board, and we'll have to wait for the other two commissioners to come back, but,
Yeah, I think they were too.
have something like that.
Sure. Was it like open to the public or what was it?
I think did we do a lunch? Was there food? Was it, you had,
Snack, are you talking about the community center?
You know, if we did something like, I mean, the thing that they
The
did before
June's
was
at
kind of like the chamber forums, you know, and the chamber actually
Yeah.
put on some of those. But,
I feel like we had a luncheon at one time.
if, you know, if you had like a, reception or something, with snacks or whatever,
Yeah.
and just had people come in if they wanted to.
But I think it'd be nice to have, you know, that open, people can ask questions and.
Gotta have food, or people won't come.
That's true.
I mean, it's
That's
true,
Um,
unless you got a really hot topic to discuss.
That's true, but, yeah, I think we were all on board at having something like that.
Okay.
I wanna say, was it before budget, were we talking about, did they do it in April?
I think, yeah, before we start doing budget, well, goal setting and that would be good. I mean, we could talk about our goals.
Okay.
What we've accomplished?
Yeah, we've accomplished, you could talk about what we've accomplished
Okay.
since you've been here before.
Okay,
In the 3 months I've been here. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, we'd be happy to figure something out.
that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything
Great
else?
idea,
Yeah.
great idea, Holly, it's good.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do more communication with the.
Strategic
No, absolutely.
communication.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anything else? Is that, anybody questions? No? Oh. Scott, you have anything else? for the week?
That's it for this, just,
Okay.
like I said, we'll keep an eye on things, we'll provide, weekly updates, but also, we'll be sure to have periodic conversations with you where we can actually sit down and talk with you all and just make sure that, we're representing you well at the state level, and that our representatives are too. I'll be sure and reach out to our representatives and see if we can get you in front of them as well, so, or them in front of you, I should say.
Nancy, anything this week?
This is our last meeting before Christmas,
That's
so
right.
everybody, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And I guess we won't see you until after New Year.
Yeah, when's our next series?
January 14th,
My
Man,
birthday.
2025.
we still got a job.
We're gonna have to have cake and ice cream on.
Oh, man.
So I will be around, other than the early release on Christmas Eve, I'll be here, so.
Okay.
If you guys need me, feel free to reach out. I know the rest of our staff is kind of hit and miss, but I'll be here, so.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for,
Man, you have anything?
Yes, want to invite parents, students, children out to a grand Christmas this upcoming Friday at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're actually going to be distributing toys to the kids in the community. You get an opportunity to get a picture with Santa Claus as well as Shorty Claus.
Oh, Shorty Claus is coming out.
The location is 616 Grand Avenue, Harvest Christian Center International Church. Hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. God bless, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah, and whatever holiday you celebrate. Love you.
Awesome. I have one question. How is 4th Street and the stoplights and all that going on?
It's very quickly, I would think they might be operational by next week.
Really?
hey, good.
Great job.
Or if maybe even the end of
It's
this
moving
week,
quick.
if the weather cooperates. I saw them, they were doing the electrical work today, which is usually a sign that they're getting close,
Great.
so.
Good.
Absolutely happy, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, to the city and staff. Thank you for all your hard work over the holidays, and, Merry Christmas. That's it. Pat, you have, just adjourn, right?
Adjourn. Adjourn.
Boom.